Has this ever happened to you? You've been working on your city for weeks now, and you initially thought you'd make an idyllic small town with cute little shops and homes. But as the needs of the city grow, you keep zoning and expanding until the end result looks like New York City. Your city looks great, but it feels so weird to see this megalopolis just sprouting out of the middle of vast green fields of empty land. You feel bored with the game. This is your 10th city that looks like a recreation of Manhattan. You can't seem to do anything else. You're proud of your creation, but it still feels a little off. You quit the game for the night and go back to playing The Sims 4. But what if I told you? There's a better way to think about your cities. Stick around after the intro, and I'll show you my best tips and tricks for building a small town in City Skylines. If you're new to the channel, my name is Diana, and today we're building the city of Saltaire, an American-style build inspired by Salt Lake City. Cities don't exist in a vacuum. If you've spent any amount of time playing this game, you know what I mean. You've got this amazing creation, sprawling across multiple map tiles, but there's nothing else around it. Real cities aren't like this. They're part of a larger, interconnected region, dotted with smaller cities and towns. Salt Lake City and the in-game counterpart Saltaire are no different. The valley it is built in is full of areas outside the main city, and even further out of the suburbs are small communities. I'm very proud to present you with a very special build for our 20th episode of Saltaire. In this video, which will be part of an ongoing mini-series of episodes, I'm going to start filling out the smaller and medium-sized towns that surround the central city. If you like this video and want to learn more ways to build more realistic cities, don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on all the great new videos that I post every Wednesday and Sunday. This is the town of Zion City. As you can see in the cinematic, it's not completed, and I will continue to work on it in upcoming episodes. In this time lapse, I'm going to explain my process for building the town and give you tips to keep your small towns from being absorbed into the growing mass that is your central city. I'd also like to give you a quick little history lesson while I do the initial road layout. I based this town's central layout on an actual historical city plan called the Plat of the City of Zion. I did hours of research on the history of this city plan for this episode, watching dry, academic, obscure YouTube videos with even less views than my least viewed content. Although people have inhabited the Salt Lake Valley for millennia before the arrival of European settlers, the history of Zion City, and Saltaire as a whole, begins with Mormons. To escape religious persecution in the US, Mormons migrated to what was then Mexico to establish new communities. Prior to his death, the Mormon prophet Joseph Smith created many guidelines for how to live a life devoted to their new faith. While I'm not religious myself, I find it important when doing a build based on Utah to include this part of the history of the region in my build. One large part of Smith's doctrine was in city planning. He developed the plat for the city of Zion for what was to be the holiest city on earth. While the city of Zion was never built, it was used as a guide for how Mormon settlements should and would be created. This involved large grids in an orderly fashion, with the center of town being the Mormon temple and alternating alleyways dividing blocks in half with low-density housing and wide streets to give people enough land to develop their own businesses in their homes. The plat for the city of Zion, which later became the initial plan for Salt Lake City, was believed to be divinely inspired and handed down to Smith directly by God. Upon arriving in Utah, Brigham Young used this plan when initially planning Salt Lake City, but the influence of other interests changed the plan over time. He had planned for the city to be as large as New York or Philadelphia at the time. While it is a major US city today, it doesn't even crack the top 10 in terms of population. Salt Lake City, and my in-game counterpart, is the holiest city in the Mormon community, but each town has its own sites of religious significance. Many other small Mormon towns use the same city plan to start their towns, with the temple as the baseline for the street layout, with all addresses and street numbers radiating out from the temple. In-game, I've selected a 15 unit by 15 unit grid to reflect this, as anything larger looks bad in-game. The actual real-life grid pattern is about twice this size, but trust me, you don't want to see that. This is the exact same grid pattern that I used in the central city, and I chose to locate this city right next to the farming area that I made in a previous episode to provide some visual continuity, as well as establish this town as being a semi-rural agricultural settlement. To reflect the fact that the city's plans aren't always perfect, I didn't align it directly with the farm roads, and I reoriented the grid to mirror the railroad tracks in some places, and added a block that reflects more modern suburban layouts. While this town is not based on anything in reality, it is loosely based on Provo, but smaller and more rural and agricultural in nature. While I have been to Salt Lake City twice, I've never been to Provo, so I have no idea what it's like beyond Google Street View, and I find the challenge of building cities based on areas I'm not familiar with quite fun. For the temple, I used the Philadelphia temple asset, and very loosely based the layout of the plaza around it on the Provo temple. But I made it look less ornate to reflect the more rural character of Zion City. Across the street, I placed a smaller Mormon church, as these two buildings do serve different purposes and are often located near each other in small towns. The temple is for Mormons only, and is used for more formal ceremonies, while the church itself is open to visitors and used for regular services, as well as an area for the whole community to gather. Most of the homes that I used in Zion City are from the Historic American Homes Pack, and I think they reflect the character of an old rural town quite well. In future episodes of Zion City, I'm going to include more modern suburban homes in the periphery to show the changes in development patterns over the decades. I added a little grocery store, Smith's, which is a very common chain throughout Utah, and included gas pumps in a small parking lot. The downtown area is located on Center Street, the main artery of Zion City. It includes many small businesses and late 19th and early 20th century style architecture, while on the other side of the complex is more modern and auto-oriented commercial buildings, as well as some offices and industrial uses. I did add the train line coming into Zion City from Saltaire, but we'll save the development of the neighborhood around the train station and bring in a second set of tracks for a cargo line into Saltaire for a future build. I also gave all of the main streets of the Central Grid names, using the traditional naming convention of many Utah towns, with the Central Arterial Road being named, and the temple being the baseline, and then the roads numbered starting at 100, going in all 4 cardinal directions. This street naming convention is somewhat confusing at first, but acts as a set of coordinates, so you can reasonably orient yourself in relation to the center of town using these streets as a guide. The temple and church make an excellent centerpiece for the town, and the mix of low-density businesses, schools, and homes makes the town feel small and cozy. I took a lot of care in the assets I chose, hand-placing everything to fully control the look and feel of the town. This prevents the inevitable Manhattanization many of our cities suffer from when zoning higher-density areas. As a nice little touch, I also included a few Spanish-language businesses as well, to reflect the growing Latino population in the U.S. Southwest. It is a community that's been in the region for hundreds of years, and their presence is often ignored in a lot of US-style builds I see online, so I think it adds a nice touch of diversity and realism to the city, and creates a better story of a dynamic and diverse town that, while founded by Mormons, includes many different types of people. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe and share with your friends.